All right, so today we're going to start section 2 of chapter 12. This section focuses on Islamic beliefs and practices. So, first and foremost, the Prophet Muhammad dies in the year 632, but his religion spreads far beyond Arabia after his death. His followers collect his teachings in a book that is called the Quran. That is the holy book of Islam. You need to make sure that you know that. And Muslims do believe that the Quran is the perfect message of God, the exact word of God as given to Muhammad, the prophet. Now, the central teaching of the Quran, and this is also the profession of faith that all Muslims must make, is that there is only one God, and that Muhammad is the prophet of that God. Islam also teaches that in the final days of the world, God will judge all people, and those who have obeyed his orders are going to be granted life in paradise, similarly to Christianity and its teachings. Now, the Quran does describe acts of worship and guidelines for moral behavior. For example, it teaches that Muslims must wash themselves so that they are pure before praying. It also prohibits certain food and drink. Muslims aren't supposed to drink alcohol. They aren't supposed to consume pork, which, like in Judaism, is considered to be an unclean meat. It also encourages people to free their slaves, which was a common issue in the Arabian Peninsula at the time. Slavery was very widespread. So it encourages the freeing of slaves. It also describes the rights of women, which women really didn't have any rights in the Arabian Peninsula at that time. And so Islam does bring changes for women. That doesn't mean that women have the same or equal rights to men, but there are more concepts concerning women's rights within Islam than there were before. So it's taking a lot of changes in the culture of the region. Now, another subject the Quran deals with is something called jihad, which you have probably heard that word before. It is often mistranslated as meaning holy war, when in fact it actually means to make an effort or to struggle. Now, typically, this is referring to the inner struggle that Muslims must make on a daily basis in their efforts to obey God. It can also refer to defending the Muslim community against attack, or it can mean to just better yourself. Some extremists have sort of hijacked it, as well as Islam. At times, usually, people like the terrorists that attacked us on 9/11 aren't really following the tenets of the faith that they say they practice, just like people will fight within Christianity in the name of God, because humans have just always done that, looking for a reason to justify a war or a grab for power or land or whatever it is. Jihad. So in the West, we have a lot of misunderstanding of what this term means, what Islam is, and it's been often very misrepresented in our media and in our society. It's not what like, for example, after 9/11, there were a lot of anti-Muslim sentiments across our country. People attacked Muslims because some extremists had attacked the Twin Towers and the Pentagon. And we took that very personally. And yet it shows a very great misunderstanding of what Islam actually is and what it teaches. And so it's important to keep in mind that the great majority of Muslims, just like the great majority of Christians, aren't out to hurt people, aren't off to fight a war, aren't terrorists. There are people within Christianity who claim to be Christians who are terrorists as well. And so it's just important to keep that distinction in mind. So be aware of that. Jihad just means to make an effort or to struggle. The 5 pillars of Islam. These are 5 things that all Muslims are supposed to do during their lifetime to show obedience to God. First is the statement of faith. Muslims must say there is no God but God and Muhammad is his prophet. Also, just I want to point out the term Allah really just means God in Arabic. Christians and Jews that spoke Arabic or speak Arabic would also use this term to refer to their God. And so sometimes it's used as a way to try and make Muslims seem very other and very separate, but it's the same God. It's the same God in the same tradition as Christianity and Judaism. The second pillar of Islam is daily prayer. 5 times per day, Muslims are supposed to pray while facing Mecca, the city of Mecca, which is basically the holiest city within Islam. Um, and often within Muslim communities, especially, there's like a call to prayer um, from the mosques, things like that. And so this is something that Muslims are expected to do every single day at certain times. The third pillar is yearly donations to charity. They're supposed to make donations to charity. A big part of Islam is charitable donations to the less fortunate. And then fasting. During the month of Ramadan, they are supposed to fast from sunrise to sunset. For anyone who doesn't know what fasting is, it means you don't drink or eat anything during that time. So during Ramadan, basically, it's showing a sort of how to phrase this, that the needs of the body aren't greater than your faith in God. And so that is the reason why typically Muslims fast. And then the Hajj. All healthy and able bodied Muslims are required to make a pilgrimage to the city of Mecca. If they aren't able bodied, then they don't do this. But if you are capable, if you are able, then you are supposed to make this pilgrimage at some point during your life. It's like a holy journey. Now, Islamic law, the Quran and the Sunnah, which is a record of the way Muhammad lived, are important guides for how Muslims are supposed to live. They also form the basis for what we call Sharia or Islamic law. Now, there is no distinction between religious belief and daily life. So religion impacts all aspects of a Muslim's life, including law. There's not this like separation of church and state concept within Islam. Now, Sharia law, as you might expect, sets rewards for good behavior, punishments for crimes. It also limits the authority of those in power. It's also the basis for law in Muslim countries up until modern times. And most modern Muslim countries will blend Islamic law, Sharia law, with other legal systems to sort of balance it out. But it's still very much entwined into their legal system because it just isn't something that they make a big separation of. In fact, if you look at the map here, everything in green has a more classical Sharia system. Everything in yellow would have a mixed system, and everything in blue has a more secular system. That's actually it for this section. We're going to watch this video, this Hip Hughes video in which he explains Islam in more depth. So I'm going to stop this recording.